it's my responsibility to kind of pull you into all things financial around EVE, and part of that is also every once in a while looking at CCP financials, because it can teach us a lot about what's going on in the game. And not a lot of content creators actually go in and let you and help you with interpreting the numbers. So what I do is whenever the earnings report comes out from Pearl Abyss, which is the company that owns CCP, the company that develops EVE Online, I go in here and I have a look at the investors presentation. It's super interesting to me because I work in the field, but it's also interesting because they explain what's going on in their games, namely Black Desert and EVE Online. They explain it in a way that you would to an investor. So they don't sugarcoat anything that is related to game. They don't pitch it in a way that CCP would explain it to us player base. They pitch it in a totally different way. They say, okay, how are we going to squeeze the most money out of this, right? Yeah, Matthew, this is Pearl Abyss is who owns it. So they make Black Desert Online, but they also bought CCP last year or a year and a half ago. And so to give you an idea, this is the presentation they release, right, to investors. And you have blah blah disclaimers, blah blah blah, but then they go into a little bit too bright in my face. They go into like their typical financial stuff, like how's the company doing, blah blah. But then they throw in stuff here about EVE Online, like, okay, so this quarter we've created better accessibility and user experience. You know, as a player, you're like, oh, you did? Is that what you're doing? I didn't really notice, but okay. Just kidding. But operating revenue up 31% quarter over quarter. That is huge. You know, that is huge. If you follow their earnings along, and you look at EVE Online, that they haven't done that in years. Have their numbers developed like that? The reason for that, they say right here after that, but if you don't know what's going on, you easily miss that, is that EVE China launched on April 27th. So that's the Serenity server, right? And that added about a third of the player base on top of the actual player base, of the current player base. And so the 31% quarter over quarter isn't all that surprising. It just reflects the number of players that were added on the Serenity server. This is Q2, so this ended at the end of July, or actually at the end of June. And so they were talking about EVE Echoes before it was launched, and they said, okay, it's pre-registered. We have pre-registrations of 5 million, so this shit's gonna take off. They were excited about it. You know, it ended up being what, about 1 million players in the first 2 weeks, which is good. It's good. It's not 5 million though. So then. Blah blah operating profits. If you're interested in finances, this is interesting. But this is the slide that's really cool, because the only information that we get about EVE Online from the Pearl Abyss statement is this right here, and that's the revenue breakdown. Okay, and so from this you can see the overall revenue. This is in Korean currency, by the way. If you convert this to dollars, it's about this month it's about $15 million. So they make about $4 to $5 million a month in revenue of EVE. CCP does, or Pearl Abyss does. And you can see here that the way that developed over the month is that Black Desert is all over the place, right? Which we don't care about. But if you look at the little EVE graph right here, it went 14.9, 14.6, 12.4, Q4 19, blackout. Converted to ISK, yeah. 14.3, and then boom, 18.9. So their revenue exploded because of China. So let's not kid ourselves, it's because of China, but still it's very good. It's very good for the Eve universe and CCP overall. Their model is working. You can see here that for Pearl Abyss overall, their revenue has shifted slowly from okay, we have a very Asia heavy revenue model to a no, North America and EU are now the biggest chunk of this, and that's also because of EVE Online. So if you're looking at the highlights that they talk about, so then they go into what's coming in Q3, right? And so they're talking about new IPs here that they're developing. That's, you know, if you're interested in that, it's cool, because a lot of times you get early notices on things because they have to communicate it here. But they're also talking about Eve Echoes, the launch, 7 languages, optimized mobile. So you know that they're expecting Eve Echoes to be a huge success internationally. And this is Eve IP right here. Their plan for Q3 is increased profit thanks to solid user base. You know what they are saying? They can, us suckers, we'll stay around. That's what that means. We have a solid user base. No matter what they do, we stick around so they can focus on getting new players on board. That's how I interpret it at least. But yeah, so if you put that in investor terms, we're the solid user base. We're the solid loyal player base that sticks through it, except for when they do blackout. One last thing about this is that, funnily enough, if you go back to Q4 19, right? This is the investors report from the beginning of the year. You could see here that they were talking about the Eve revenue as pretty steady, right? And Q4, remember in the report that I showed you right now that this number was like 12 point something because of blackout, and here it was still 15. This is because they reported something odd here from subsidiaries. We don't know what this is. They didn't say it in the call either. All we know is that if you go back to today's report or last month report, you now see that they corrected this 3 billion down, and this says non-game revenues excluded. So they try to kind of hide the impact, I think, of blackout, or they did some funky stuff that they then reversed out of their report. And their earnings calls are in Korean, so it's fairly difficult to understand. But this is just an interesting, nice tidbit. So yeah. Sunk cost fallacy, Gaurav? I know what sunk cost is, but you have to explain to me how that applies to this context. But yeah, so pretty interesting stuff, to me at least. And if you're looking at kind of like the takeaways that I take from this is, you have Q2 revenues that are up 32%. That's because of China. You have also revenues that are up 27% year over year. Also China. The difference now is that if you look at Pearl Abyss as a total, then now Eve is not 10% anymore, but 14%, and so they're gaining, they're becoming a bigger part of Pearl Abyss, Pearl Abyss's overall revenues, which is always a good thing. And interesting enough, they are very tight-lipped about the average monthly users that they're getting, right? And there was an interview with Hilmar, the CCP CEO, though, from March, where he actually said that number in the interview, and he said, well, we have 300,000 monthly active users. There's no way that we can check that, but that's good. That's at least a data point that he's throwing out there. Now, that's probably accounts. I don't like, it's, to me it's a little low for accounts. So it could be that he actually means humans. But I'm building up a data model right now to verify some of these numbers and to also see what that means for revenue per user and how the revenue per user developments are going on overall. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. So if you guys want me to continue to do this kind of stuff on stream for CCP Financials, and give me some feedback on Discord. I put the link to the Discord right there. Then happy to kind of give you updates on a regular basis and kind of interpret the numbers for you. To me, really interesting stuff going on here.